So I'm here with a client of mine. We will just call him E, and that works for you if we call you E, right?
Works fine.
um, and yeah, I thought that it would be interesting just to hear some of his experiences because E is a good example of someone who's very open, applying these concepts and very much into integrating them. So for me, E is like kind of my ideal client because he is non-dogmatic and open to taking suggestions, basically, of stuff that might work and might not work, and is also open to hearing various teachers' interpretations and not saying one teacher is the one way to go, the only way I can do it. So E, I was just curious, you know, you've known about these law of assumption, law of attraction ideas for a long time, correct?
Yeah, definitely. For some years now.
What, like, when you initially reached out to me, I think that was like this past summer, like a little bit of like over half a year ago, something like that. Um, what drew you to do that? Like, what were you looking for, if you remember?
If I if I remember anything, is that I two reasons really. You know, dealing with strong emotions, especially with people close to me. And another thing is actually that I got my manifestations, but it was what I'd like to call the monkey's paw version of these manifestations. It's like it's manifestations, and I guess you could say it was an SP or GP, general person that I had to
It was definitely an SP, though. I mean, the way people use that lingo, you would
I
definitely
mean,
follow it. Yeah.
well, to go off on the tangent, I say SP because SP is like someone that they know, and they want this person that they know to
Right.
uh, to
Your story is
kind of go off
much
on.
your story with that. We don't have to get into specifics of that. We probably shouldn't keep it PG,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but I mean, your story with that is ridiculous. I mean, it's like
It really is.
you
It really is, and I came to you because it was like the entire time that it was happening. I was like, this is so ridiculous, but this is also like my state of vibration, and yet a version of my desire, but a version of my desire like from hell came into my life. And by
oh
the way,
man.
this SB actually went out of my life, and let's put it this way: it was a lovely it was lovely while it lasted, but it was ultimately a bullet dodged.
Right.
So so it was very, very blessed, but it's all like, wait, um, I can manifest, and yeah, and that's almost like the warning sign about when it comes to actually getting into the stuff, is that you can manifest your thing, but you can also manifest like the darkest timeline of it.
Mhm.
And to me, it was just kind of hilarious. It was kind of hilarious because it's all like, okay, and that's your inner state reflected out. You know, what some authors, let's say like the Abraham Hicks, and who talk about, who are really much more about your state and your inner feelings most of the time, and I thought that was a reflection of that, and also when it actually comes to the feelings that I would have a day, it would be it would be feelings, let's say, of frustration, some anger with people in my life, and and, uh, and this I already had read of Joseph Murphy, Florence Scovel Shinn, and of course Neville, and they talk about, let's say, um, like in terms of mental diet, or not thinking ill of others, having arguments, inciting your mind, and yet my mind would always go there often, and and it's kind of like a torture that your mind goes there, but there's also a reminder in the back of your mind. Remember Joseph Murphy, to not think to do. If you think ill of another, you think ill of yourself. It is a mental poison.
Yeah.
So it's so yeah, I came to you wrestling with my own mind.
Right. And I remember too, the first time we worked together, the first session we had, a lot of it was like, it, this SP manifestation was outrageous. It's the kind of stuff you read on the message boards and you're like, this person might be making this up. Because it was very specific. Um, but I remember what you kind of wanted to work through in that regard was you felt you felt bad for the SP, and you wanted to do them right and make sure they were taken care of and well, and like you wanted, and so you wanted to basically give them love. And I remember the first time we did like a session, we did kind of IFS somatic work together. It was like it was about that. It was processing that, like, okay, this situation was really fucked up in many ways, and I can give myself love and give this other person love and let it go at that. Whatever happens, happens. Am I putting words in your mouth, or is that kind of like how it was for you?
Yep, no, you're spot on so far.
Yeah. And so, I mean, what's interesting is our sensitivity, our caringness is often what um, I almost want to say gets in the way when we read about these teachings on Reddit or see some of these sensationalistic YouTube videos, because it's like a lot of it is a misinterpretation of Murphy and Neville and Shin, and it's like me, right? And it's so like in the reality and the emotion, the shadow part that like we have to work through, it's like, well, yes, I want to be happy and healthy, but I also want other people to be happy, healthy, and loving. Like, and so like, how can I channel that or process that? And I think that's what's really impressive with your story is how well your sense your sensitivity, I think in some ways used to take advantage of you, and now you are using it advantageously for yourself and for others. does that make does that make sense? Does that resonate?
Yeah, it does. I would say it does.
um I'm curious, when we were working together more recently, uh just these inner, again, because of, I think, your empathy and your sensitivity for others. um I remember, early, whatever it was, late fall, early winter, when we were working together, you basically saying like, I feel bad about how I think about some of the people close to me. um and like, I think one of the things that we were trying to figure out is like, how can you better process this? uh and so I'm curious kind of what your experience was with that, because you certainly have processed it.
Well, in terms of processing it, it was really like taking a good deep look at the emotions that were already there. What were they trying to say? And this is where we went into IFS. And for everyone there, short for internal family systems, or Tim's application of it.
Right. This is not, for
And
those listening, this is not like, official IFS or anything like that. This is the chicken scratch version that we do.
yeah, yeah, but it's also but it's ultimately about taking these emotions and then interacting directly with them, leaning into them, and feeling them fully, and you know what, talking with these parts of yourself that are feeling that, and where you're gonna feel intense emotions like anger, frustrations. You know exactly where you'll feel them, or at least a general part. It could be like in your chest, in your throat, in your head. And if you quiet down, you can they will say something. And in my experience, it's an amazing thing because sometimes, with other people in my life, I could get angry, petty. It's funny how I'm actually more quiet in real life because, well, my thought is that it's all like, is that really me, or is that just, or is that just like a lower part of myself? But then that part that's there, as I look deep into it, it really is deep caring. I feel those things because I care. And as I'm talking through, them, I'm there. An amazing thing happens. Those intense emotions that feel like that they're overwhelming, they calm down by themselves. And from that, and from there comes a great peace.
Yeah, yeah. And you certainly are a great example of someone doing that, just feeling into that. And I know too, I mean, you're a long time, you've known my stuff for a while, and you're a big believer in somatic movement as well, doing, we call it spazzing out, like in Stop Being Serious, that video series I did a long time ago, still one of my favorite things I ever did. Call it spazzing out, and just really doing crazy movements, doing crazy noises. And I feel like in your experiences, like you mixed like the get quiet, feel the feelings, listen to what they're saying, ask them what they need, with really active fun spazzing out, like just doing movement for the sake of moving. And like that's wonderful, a wonderful, those two complement each other very nicely, because one's kind of gentle, quiet, the other's very obviously active. um do you want to
You,
describe how that is for you, like kind of how that practice was and has been?
yeah. I think I've been doing more of sitting down and just feeling, but but that thing of actually just of just spazzing out and moving is that the energy is there. You might as well move it and accept it. And hey, when it comes to spazzing out, it just means acting just like a fool, like a child, or like a child, like an animal, like a monkey. We are monkeys ultimately.
Right.
I mean, they and just let they again, it's moving that energy. And again, you can sit with it peacefully, like you know, take that part to tea, or move it, and they both will get you to that same place.
Yeah. And I'm the same way as you, where the older I get, and I notice this even when I've recorded Stop Being Serious. I think at the end of Stop Being Serious, to talk about this, like the older I get, the quieter I get, and the more prone I am usually to just sit with the emotion. What do you want? It's okay. We're all good, and see give it time. Um, but the truth of the matter, and I've done a lot of videos about this in the last year. It still is incredibly effective, and I'm like, thank goodness I had this in my tool shed to just move like all hell, and just scream like a monkey, or whatever, jump up and down like a monkey, and just do that, because that, when you can't move energy, that will make you move energy. You know what I'm saying? So it's using whatever works in the moment. Um, and we often are probably not going to use such a dramatic tool, but it's great that we know about it, and can use it if we need to.
Absolutely, because when it comes to our states, it's tools, and it's tools that we can play around with until we find what can work or not. And
Exactly.
that's the real challenge of this whole thing, of this whole law of attraction, assumption, manifestation thing, is really getting into what getting into what works for us. And the more I go into it, the more I realize that we're ultimately searching for those for that feeling, whether a few feelings: calm, peace, what's known now as a void state. I hate it how in
The void state.
this online space, there's things they become trends. Void state, a robotic affirmation, and it's all like, no, those are all tools to get to a calm, peaceful state, or kind of like a state of true joy.
Right.
you know. And the good news, that's inside of us, always.
Yeah, exactly. And like once you have that realization and you start to like confirm it more and more, it's just like holy shuckies. Like you're that like that's a paradigm shifter. That's the paradigm shifter. And then it's just like figuring it out, like how, if I want to, can I access it more? You know, and we've spoken a lot about how like you don't have to access it 24/7. You can wait and do it when it's appropriate. Like when, if you know you're a busy guy, I'm a busy guy. Like it doesn't have to be like on demand if you have stuff you have to do, but it's always there. And something that in our work together recently that I think was powerful. I'm always suggesting different teachers, and like I said, most of my clients that I jive most deeply with, like, are very open to different stuff. And you've known about Richard Dawes for a long time, but like I feel like the last month or two has really been the first time you've really dived into Richard's work, and I'm just curious. I want to hear what his thoughts.
No. I learned about Richard Dotz from you. Be and in fact, however, he vibes with me so much is because is because in the past I've the techniques and whole processes that he's created that he wrote down. I've like done them before, but almost without knowing what I'm doing. Because I also talked about you before that when life gets a little too real, when life gets too real, when the stress is real, this stuff becomes almost like a survival mechanism. And here's almost like the part that's annoying, and is is that it works best. It works best like when you're like in danger.
Yes, this is a
When
huge point. We were emailing about this the other day. This is so important.
yeah, yeah, when shit starts to hit the fan, it all clicks. When things are okay is when it's harder. But when it comes to fans, it's all like that's when you reach the fine state. That is when that is when I'm actually to just accept my reality with some grace. That is when I'm able to breathe, and that is when I'm able to just to visualize and to feel the end state of the best possible outcome, and like problems resolve themselves. And I had an experience that a scary experience that but my entire process was a lot like the way Richard Dotz described it in Dissolve the Problem, which I read in the last month. And thanks to you, because you decided one day that I would very much vibe with him, and you were right. I did extremely. Now, this situation that I got myself into, I'll actually admit right here, right now, my bad. It was not smart of me to get into it, but it happened, and I was already in it, and
It
it
wasn't,
actually had,
but just a caveat though, like, I mean, it was very understated. You're making it seem like it was something criminal or something. Like it was nothing like, I mean,
no,
it was a business decision that went awry, basically. Or, I would just,
yeah, it was essentially like one of these online boot camps, which can really be a minefield for just predatory criminals trying to rip people off. This and this particular company, they were very sneaky because they actually had something that what seemed like for most people like a great deal, and they really like manipulated their public image in terms of like positive reviews, uh, uh, flooding the search engines where they looked good, where they looked as good as possible. And if there was like Better Business Bureau that getting as many good reviews as possible, and anyone who complained to like respond to everything in detail. So it's all like okay, it's a risk, but but let's see what I can do. And so this uh, online boot camp, and I went through a sort of training that was actually for for and software and tech sales, because it was a space I was really curious about, but I had no experience in it. And it's all like, okay, if I shift into this, let's see if we can somehow create it. But after a while, okay, went through some course with them, went through a bunch of job applications, with no luck. But then it turns out, oh, students on this are complaining a lot. The employers are turning people away because they think this whole thing is actually a scam, and there's just a big uproar, and the cracks in their armor are just starting to show. But the way that they made their contracts essentially made it so that me and other people would actually be would owe them a huge amount. And so yes, for a while I did owe them a huge amount. But my attitude, it's like, well, this happened. There's nothing I can do by the fact that I owe them. I've signed these legally binding contracts. Become at peace with that. Accept that as something in your reality. And of course, this was around the time when I first saw Neville, a combination of SATs and revision. And so I revised, ever having worked with them. And of course, SATs, a situation, because a kind of feeling is a secret feeling, that feeling of relief. It's all like, yes, I'm free of them, free of them. And again, outside in the outside world, there was no indication that anything would happen. I was still on the line. Other students were still owing them a bunch, and I think it was like that for about a year. In fact, I actually tried to negotiate something with them one day, and and what I was already paying, they actually increased it, and they actually scared me with a lawsuit. So it's all
Oh
like,
my
oh
God.
God. But that entire time, it's all like whenever they came into mind, it's all like, no, you focus on what's good today, what's good in the present moment, and eventually, I got a letter in the mail that they were going to court, that this company, this predatory company, was going through a bankruptcy, and they were going through a lawsuit as well. And it's like, wait, these guys are going through bankruptcy, and students are formed like they I actually forget where they were. I think it was like a Telegram group where they were updating each other. And it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, we're getting letters from here, and let's all stop paying these people. So I went to my bank, put a stop payment, and with that stop payment, I got like one little warning, and then the portal I did the stop payment in closed completely. This company closed down. A bunch of attorney generals from a bunch of states went to close them down, and eventually it turned into a multi-million-dollar settlement, and I was free from them forever. And later on, through Tim right here, I discovered Richard Dawson. He describes, how do you solve a big problem in your life, and it's all like, I did a lot of that already.
Exactly.
And I would still recommend to solve the problem, because he outlines the whole process.
Right. And something
And if
else
I
that
were to
I was just
and the way I'm
go ahead.
explaining it to you, I would probably be leaving out a few key points that Richard Dots shows very clearly. And that can be like the wonderful thing about this whole process, how it can be used defensively. Okay, it can be used like to navigate you through troubled waters.
Yeah. And it's so true that like it does tend to work sometimes the best when we really need it in those desperate situations, like where like, oh shit, like nothing, like I have, like something has to happen here. And I of myself cannot do it, right? Like it's like I have to surrender or like really, be aligned with my higher self, however, whatever language you want to use. And yeah, I think one reason to dissolve the problem is a great book is Richard really articulates. He's like, well, why can't we just do that more often? Instead of doing that 1% of the time, why can't we make this a more regular practice? And I know recently, that you've been, you've really been Another great book of his is the magic feeling that creates instant manifestations. I believe it's called. It's the full title.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I know one of your recent practices has been like, well, that's like, why don't I just touch that magic feeling? Go back to there a couple times a day, as Dots recommends throughout his books, basically. Um,
Yeah,
it's so powerful.
it really is, and once again, that was actually something I also discovered differently. It was actually like a like another author, another guy who actually talked about it was actually Anthony Robbins. He was talking about state control,
Right, Tony.
and but and again, I discovered it, but sort of like stopped doing it before because I don't know. I almost felt like I didn't have permission. Like I didn't have permission. That I guess I don't know, like things in the outside world, in my outer reality, it's all like I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I like I can justify doing that. And then it's like, and then Richard Dawes came along. It's all like, no, you don't. You can do that anytime, whenever. And and even now, I'm having a few doubts because oh my god, sometimes the magic feeling can feel so great, and I've got some awesome music that's kind of like my crutch. Which
Mm-hmm.
you tell me like what how you use music, yeah, your use of music with the magic feeling. But yeah, I think that I like wake up, okay, get that magic feeling, and then I'll be antsy during the day. It's like in the morning, steady. Okay, I'm gonna get I'm sick. I'm so antsy for my magic feeling, my 2 p.m. magic feeling. God, when is it going to be 2 p.m.? And and you know what? This magic feeling that's all from inside me is an amazing high.
Yeah.
And there are days I do it. I think I do it like so often that I've actually had. So people come to me. It's like, what? Are you high or something? It's all like that's nope, completely sober. So I'm doing even Richard Dodd's like it warns you, don't careful, you can zone out, and I'm like, too late.
That's yeah. We were talking about how somehow my some of my opinions, not many, but some of my opinions have changed since like the stop being serious stuff I put out years ago. And one of the my opinions has definitely changed is like you can do this stuff or like engage other people in this stuff like besides children like with regularity. Like absolutely not. Like you usually want to do this stuff in the privacy of your own whatever room, car, bathroom, or whatever. Like because it can get pretty far out there. But I mean it's a valid point you make where it's like, well, is this like addictive? And I think Tony Robbins uses like he used the term like state priming, right? Um,
Hmm.
but I would say, someone like yourself and people who are into these principles in like a dedicated way, it's not addictive because you're grounding yourself at the same time. And that things will kind of ease out and even out usually. And everybody has their own like kind of like default states and where they want to go. But if it's from inside you and you can bring it out from within and you're not looking for external confirmation, I mean, that's God speaking through you or to you or something, maybe, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? Like it's it's something you can work with and don't have to be fearful of, right? It's not addictive in a bad way, I would say. So
Of course. Oh, and gonna show off some nerdy credentials today. I get into my magic feeling sessions with music from Legend of Zelda, Dragon Ball, and Studio Ghibli movies. The soundtracks from those.
there you go. Again, whatever works. Whatever works.
Yeah.
We've spoken about this before, but I mean, music is one of these things that's such an obvious state primer and way to help you get into a state that you want. And it's actually interesting how it's not discussed more. I mean, people are always like, oh, do binaural beats or like whatever, like all this stuff on YouTube. That stuff's great, don't get me wrong. But often it's like, dude, just use the music you like that moves you. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know I can go in the car, I talk about like listen to the Rolling Stones and stuff, but also like I can like turn on like Ennio Morricone, the great film composer. That
Hmm.
stuff is like meant for manifestation. You know what I mean? Because it's like so dramatic and stirs you in such a way. And so, yeah, I
Oh,
mean,
Ecstasy of, and I got the magic feeling listening to Ecstasy of Gold the other day.
there
So,
you go. Exactly. It's like, whoa. And, again, what's so cool is like we're talking about doing this stuff without needing these huge external stimuli to do it and bringing it out from within, right? So they're great mood stabilizers, if nothing else. And we obviously think they're more than just that. But in the very least, it's like, for a lot of this stuff, it's like, well, why not try this out? Why not experiment with what makes me feel better and even, blissful, ecstatic, joyful during the day? If I can access that from within and don't need to be snorting cocaine or drinking or, getting into an argument to get my adrenaline up or something to do that, why not use these more, practical techniques that are not perhaps traditional mindfulness or meditation or something like that, but are a little bit more, I would say, forgiving in terms of how you do them.
Well, definitely, and the those wonderful feelings, and you can really bring out some wonderful some warm flashes and tingles right from just out of will, and better than just most drugs. And the
Yeah.
drugs that are better will kill you slowly. So,
Right.
but
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
it's yeah, I'm I'm pretty much convinced that that's the kingdom of heaven, or what the Hindus would call prana or shakti flowing through you. Das talked about that too, and of course, getting into that and following that up by you know being as calm as possible, because holding on to that zero state, that is still a great challenge for me, but a lot of it is just like surrendering, being okay with what is. To anyone listening, I have this from experience. If I can experience my problems being solved, like huge issues that seemed like they could have just destroyed me, like dissolve, you can dissolve it too.
It's
It's
such a
just do it and have that bit of trust and faith.
Yeah. And again, you'll feel it. That's what's so interesting. Like, you don't have to
Yes,
just trust it intellectually, like have faith intellectually, which is what dooms us a lot of the time. You feel it in your body, right? And
you do. You
you
do,
feel it.
and here's an important thing too: is that it really is like a fine dance where you are acknowledging what's going on, but you're not ignoring it completely. It really is a subtle
Right.
thing, but that trust that it will go away. And here's the thing: when you have to take action, when you actually have to resolve it, you'll know what to do.
Good. Yeah. It's
And
very
even if you make some kind of mistake along the way, which I kind of did with the pre-hard, but like raising up like what I had to pay, it's all like you'll you'll be guided to the best possible solution by just having that trust that these problems can resolve themselves in the most peaceful way, and going into that place.
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
experienced it. You've if since you were the one who recommended me to solve the problem, I know you've lived that
Yeah.
in some way. But
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think I also go so far as to say I think most of us, it's like in a way innately wired into us to have this capability, and we usually only utilize it when our backs are up against a wall, as you said, and it's almost like a survival mechanism at that point. um and I think you raise a very important point too, where this is not about being perfect. We were talking before we started recording, like, this isn't about like replicating what Dots does or what Neville does or what Abraham Hicks does or what anybody does. It's more like these are guidelines or approaches that we can utilize to make ourselves feel better and make other people feel better too in the process, because we feel better, we can give more, we can be more connected to other people. Um, so it's not about like judging ourselves, and it's not, in my opinion, it's not even about holding on to the feeling, because like, God is perfection, the universe is perfection, so it's like it's always there, right? So the more we recognize it, I think the more in tune we get with ourselves, and we of course we feel better. But it's fine if like
well,
we
I thank you for reminding me that, because I think it's all like, no, just let me hold on a little longer, but you just gave me permission to. It's all like, let
no,
go.
yeah, it's not about holding it all, in my opinion. I mean, that's fine to do, I get that, and it's like cultivating it, etc. That's fine, but it's like you're good anyway. and it's always there. And it's something where if we turn to it more as a default, if we look forward, like you're saying, to like, oh, just having some quiet time where I can kind of vibe out, as I like to say, to this feeling or this sense of being who I am right now, it's great. And if you vibe out like that and nothing, quote unquote, nothing happens, that's fine too. That's the thing. I mean, it's like, that's
They,
God too. If
it's
you do it long enough, as you say, if you do it
it's
proficiently,
there's like a beck in my mind. It's all like, I hope this works, but when you're doing it, you're just finding the moment.
exactly
And,
right.
and
It's like
that's
it's not about it working or not working. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it, when you're vibing out, it's all like the moment as it is perfect. Like
right.
the whole, and you go into it, it's perfect, and then for a moment, and by the way, I don't last that long where I accept and say everything as it is perfect. You come out of that state like that because while you get a high there when you vibe out, you everything becomes like just like a nice, beautiful flat,
Yeah.
and you see the perfection in everything.
Yeah.
And even if it's for a moment, like I'll probably be like in that after that blissful state. There's probably a good 10 to 20 minute buffer, and then my mind will like it will like but it will like regress. Let it regress. I'll go back to unconsciousness, and but the good news, you know it's always there, and you'll feel it stuck
Exactly.
in you.
And Joe Goldsmith talks about this really well, uh, particularly like in The Art of Meditation, that book, where he says, it might just be a click, just a moment, just a second. And then like, but the point is that's God realization right then. And God realization is like everything's fine always. It's the peace that passeth understanding. So it's like, it's always there. I'm okay. Okay, I'm out of this meditative, almost like blissful, deeply joyfully peaceful state. And now I'm back to the shit. I've got to do this, and that. And my conscious mind is racing. And you're still good.
Yeah.
You know, that's yeah. Yeah, you're a great example of someone who's really integrating these principles directly into your life somatically. Yeah, so very very inspiring. Um, yeah, when we do post this audio, I'm sure if you want to put some comments or whatever, I'm sure people would like to answer if you want or don't. But yeah, I'd love to have you on again sometime in the future to talk more about this. Any last tips or insights for people in terms of what we're talking about, in terms of integrating this stuff or things you've learned, through experimentation? Because you're an experimenter, I would say, in the best sense.
I, I I definitely am. Hey, you know, I guess anyone out there, keep on experimenting. You'll find a lot of blessings along the way. And I guess you know, um, that well, when you and know that if you feel you're repeating something and it's backfiring on you, you're not alone. It's it's kind of supposed to be that way too.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
mean, not to say that it's all like that that some will figure it out sooner and faster, but it happens. You know, this uh, um, one thing that really brought me to you is that you realize how challenging it is to get the stuff right, and Dot, and that were really like praising Dot's here. What's the thing that made me vibe with him was that it took him. Let's say he had like a specific money amount and he never said it. He said it took him 10 years to get it right. So yeah, so if you're stumbling, you're getting along the way, you might even, I don't know, get panic attacks. As I heard something with you and Martin were talking about that someone was doing Sammy Ingram style affirmations, and they had like a breakdown, a panic attack over that. It's all like that can happen too.
Yep, it can. And again, I mean, that's why you go to people who actually can facilitate and guide you through some of this stuff, as opposed to people just selling you quick fixes, because the quick fixes basically never work long term. They can work short term for sure, but my hope is that there's more intelligent commentary and more people facilitating these ideas the way I try to do, the way that you are speaking about in terms of integrating it intelligently. The more people hear stories like your own, because that's how these ideas work best for us. I have found in my since finding these ideas initially at the end of 2013. So
And of course, I mean, working with a coach, working with you, yeah, you say that it's not a quick fix, but it is like a shortcut because you're not because I guess the thing about people who get into this and are persistent with it, where I love this word, we can be so bullheaded and stubborn that we just keep on doing things that don't work and are just counterproductive, but we just keep on at it just because of the persistence is part of our nature.
exactly, that's a great point.
But kind of like surrendering to a coach will show you, hey, try this, try this. Have you heard of this?
Have you heard of Richard Dotz, for instance, this last time? I mean, that's exactly
exactly. Like you pointing out Richard Dotz, like here's the real value of it that I was thinking of it of. We're coaching. It's all like all it was a suggestion by you, but look at how saturated like this space is with authors, authors, YouTubers, podcasters, and so it's overwhelming. And yet here you are with your experience saying, here, go here. Where on our own we would just be overwhelmed and probably go to something that would not work for us.
Right. Or you find it, but you don't spend as much time on it as you should have because initially it looks similar to other stuff or what have you. I mean, that's for me. I mean, the longer I get into this stuff, the more coaching I want. I'm always looking for people to be another set of eyes because I know I'm missing stuff every day. You know what I'm saying? And we're so bullheaded, in terms of thinking we can do it all ourselves, and it doesn't need to be so hard,
And hey, so that's what I've seen the value of coaching, and hey, and you say that you yourself get into coaching. I mean, I've seen some other, I've found some other folks online that they'll have like 3 or 4 coaches going on at once just to like get them to where they're going and not veer off.
Right.
Or just be as useful as possible. And in that regard, you're actually great. Because I mean because also what you pay your fee is coaching is also, think of it like this. You're paying for all the time that you're saving doing stuff that's just blowing up in your face instead.
Yeah. And it's not just money, it's time, years, honestly, a lot of especially with SP stuff, but for all of this stuff for sure. Yeah. I mean, for instance, I don't regret it because life is life, but like, I'm like, man, like if I had found a good therapist in my 20s or early 30s, that would be very different than when I found my therapist in my, being almost 40 or like my late 30s when I did. But I'm thankful I was finally open enough to find someone, like because I wasn't. And I hope this LOA space the more people start taking coaching and just getting help, getting another set of eyes seriously, because it's definitely helpful for I think most of us. All right, E, I have to go. This has been a great talk. Thank you so much, and we will speak again soon, and hopefully we'll have you on YouTube again soon. Bye, everybody.